Waffle House. I immediately observed a male Hispanic. He was laying on his side, and I think I touched him or tried to kneel down to see if he was alive or not, and he was shot. He had an obvious shot to the head, and there was blood, and then you could see his brain, and you could tell that he was obviously deceased. I proceeded to walk past him and observed a male black laying on his stomach, large amount of blood around his head, and I could tell he was deceased at the time. And I got on the radio and advised that I had code 3 and 4 injuries. Yeah, thank you. And I relayed that, and I said I need code 3 to 4 injuries, and I need more people out here.
What?
Code 3 to 4 injuries is code 3 is very critical injuries, life-threatening injuries. Code 4 means that they're deceased.
Okay. So based on what you saw as you approached the Waffle House,
Yes.
could you tell that those two individuals appeared to be deceased to you?
Yes, sir. And I observed the windows to the Waffle House had some damage approaching, and that's when I entered the Waffle House after relaying the information of the 2 deceased people outside of the Waffle House.
Officer Johns, you testified that you responded to a bunch of shootings before.
Yes.
What about what you saw made you kind of emotional right here as you testify today?
Their extent of their injuries, the people that I dealt with inside, conversations that I had with people that didn't make it. I think about it quite often. Yeah.
As you went inside the Waffle House, what did you do, or what did you see?
When I walked inside the Waffle House, there was 2 female blacks. When you walk in directly, there was a booth kind of to the left. Large amount of blood underneath the table. Sorry. Okay, the 2 female blacks underneath the table. One, she was deceased. She was underneath the table, a large amount of blood. She was in a very unnatural position. It wasn't like she was trying to hide. It was apparent that she had no control over her body in the way that she was underneath the table. I knew at that time that she was deceased. And the other female black, I thought she was deceased at first. She was slouched down, so the seat's like this and the table's kind of up. She fell down and was sitting on her butt and was slouching and was looking up and was not moving. And I thought she was deceased, but then I heard a loud gasp come from her. And I didn't know if that was her body trying to wake her up. When people pass away, their brain, if it's still functioning, will try to wake them up. And I approached her, and she blinked. And I didn't know if she was responsive or not, so I was trying to talk to her, and she wasn't answering any questions. And I said, I need you to blink if you understand me, and then she blinked. So I knew that she was still alive. I was really concerned about her because she was unable to move and was not very responsive, so she kind of drew a lot of my attention. I began to talk to her, and due to her not being able to physically say any words to me, we had an actual officer at Metro that got shot, and she comes to our academy and speaks to us. And she said when she got shot, she counted to 10 to keep her brain active, and it's the first thing I could think about was try to get her to count to stay alive. Yeah.
So you asked her to count to 10?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And was she able to do that?
She would say 1, 2, but she could never really make it up to 10. I had another individual there. I asked him to keep in conversation, keep her engaged, so I could get her to, try to fight to stay alive.
Other than trying to talk her through to survive, what other aid, if any, did you provide to her?
There was towels. I remember asking a worker at the Waffle House for towels if they had anything to put pressure on the wounds, and one of the workers there was able to put towels on the counter. I grabbed some towels and I threw them to Mr. Silva's brother, because prior to that he told me there was 2 people on his side of the Waffle House that were injured, one to the arm and one to the leg.
What side of the Waffle House would that have been?
When you're facing the Waffle House, the first 2 were initially by the door, and then you go down the counter and it's like an L shaped, and then Mr. Silva and his fiance were on the left, in the left corner of the Waffle House.
Okay. And you said that there was someone that you threw some towels to? Who was that?
Yes, I threw that to Mr. Silva's brother.
Okay. And what was he doing with the brother? What was Mr. Silva's brother?
Mr. Silva was telling me that there was 2 people injured on his side and that he was his brother. He was concerned about his brother and his fiance, and I said, can you render aid to them until I can get more officers and EMS, which is our emergency medical services, and fire department out there to perform life-saving efforts.
Okay. As you were rendering aid to the first female and Mr. De Silva was rendering aid to the other 2 individuals, did anyone else, any other police officers or paramedics come into the Waffle House? Yes,
the second officer that responded is a canine officer, Officer Gilpin. He, while I was rendering aid to the first female black, he approached me and said, do you need a tourniquet? And I advised him I did not need a tourniquet at this time to go check on De Silva and his fiance on the left side, because I didn't know their extent of the injuries. At that time, he proceeded to the left, and I think very shortly after the fire department came in, and that's when I moved over to De Silva's side to render aid.
Who did the fire department or the paramedics take first?
They ended up taking Mr. De Silva first.
Okay.
We didn't know the extent of his injuries until the fire department got there. He obviously had a gunshot wound to his right arm. It appeared to be an exit wound. We cut his pants and cut his shirt and observed a small entry wound to his chest. And that's when the EMS decided that he had to go first, that his injuries were going to be pretty extensive.
Was Mr. De Silva alert or awake?
He was alert. I spoke with him, and he kept saying, it hurts, my arm hurts. And I even told his brother, I was like, he's talking, and I said, I know it hurts, but it hurts means that you're alive and you're aware that, that something's going on. I need you to stay awake for me and stay alert. And then he was loaded on the gurney to take out to the ambulance.
Okay. And when the first female, that you were tending to, when, if at all, did a paramedic come to provide her assistance?
There was 2 ambulances that arrived at the exact same time. So when we were dealing with De Silva, they began to pull her out from underneath, and she let out a very grueling and screeching scream when they were pulling her out from underneath that table. And I believe that she was the second one to be transported.
What were her injuries?
The injuries that I observed on her was a gunshot wound to her arm and her leg, and I couldn't tell if she was struck anywhere else. She wasn't bleeding extensively or heavily or anything like that, but I was very concerned about her because she was having a hard time of staying awake and conscious.
Were you able to see any entrance and or exit wounds to her arm?
So many lives were changed on that dreadful day back on April 22nd, 2018. And you can see that this officer's life was changed, how he told the jury he thinks about finding those victims quite often. We're going to step aside and take a break. We'll get you back into the courtroom next.